I call this May 6th meeting of the Paducah Planning and Zoning Commission to order and ask that you stand with us as we say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mr. Summer, call the roll, please.
Mr. Benberry, Mr. Bradford,
Here.
Mr. Morrison, Mr. Emke, Mr. Shadle,
Here.
Mr. Wade,
Here.
Chair Casillas.
Here. Mr. Shadle, I believe you have the minutes motion.
Yes, I do. I move that the reading of the minutes for April 15th, 2019 be waived and that the minutes of said meeting as prepared by the secretary be approved as written.
Second.
Second by Wade.
I have an amendment to the
Okay.
minutes. I think on the vote to table that we had, Mr. Benberry and I both voted nay.
I was thinking there was a couple of nays.
Mm-hmm.
Made that correction. Okay. Are there any more corrections, changes? We'll be voting to approve the amended minutes.
Mr. Shadle,
Aye.
Mr. Wade,
Aye.
Mr. Bradford,
Aye.
Chair Casillas.
Aye. Mr. Wade, you have the first item of business, which is a continuation case.
Yes, I move that this commission remove from the table application WAV 2019-126 pertaining to property located at 6701 and 6711 Turnberry Drive.
Second.
Second by Bradford. Are there any questions? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Wade,
Aye.
Mr. Bradford,
Aye.
Mr. Shadle,
Aye.
Chair Casillas.
Aye. Now, to remind everybody, I'm going to read the original motion that was presented, and that is, I move that this commission receive and file the application of Edward Francis and Melissa Ann O'Neill for the proposed re-subdivision of property located at 6701 and 6711 Turnberry Drive. I further move that the requested waiver of the public hearing and the dedication of streets not be given and approval of the submitted plat be denied.
There was some information that the Planning Commission had asked for at the last meeting, and that is included in your new staff report under additional information. There was asked how many total lots is 66, which 52 have structures and 14 are vacant. 16 are adjacent and under the same ownership, meaning that the Grove could lose up to 9 more lots if waivers are performed on those adjacent lots. The Planning Commission also asked for the size of the lots and the resulting lot sizes, which I've included in here. And in front of you tonight is the assessed value, which the commission asked for. So we went through every single lot based on 2019 values and found that the average value of lots with homes, excuse me, is, let's see, the total is $26,489,387, and the average of that with homes on them is $529,788, whereas the total for just lots by themselves is $368,500. The average lot by itself is $26,321. And also included on this is how much taxes have been generated for the state of Kentucky, McCracken County, City of Paducah, and the city and county schools. And everything that has been provided to you all has been provided to Mr. Goins as well. And I would be happy to answer any other questions you have, or Jason, if you're ready for him. And also, I've created a couple maps to kind of give the commission a spatial idea of where everything was that we was talking about map-wise.
The annexation agreements that you provided to us, is this the only agreement that exists between the developer and the city?
That we could find, yes.
This is the summation of everything?
Yes.
Okay.
One thing, and I hope the commission has had the time to go out there and actually look at this. I think it, like I said before, it would be fairly obvious that this is being used as one lot. Just to repeat a few things and to introduce one other thing that was not mentioned last time. Just down the street, and I mean just down the street, in 2015, we did a waiver of subdivision similar to this, where we abolished a property line in between. It was between a Mr. Bowling and a Mr. Hickey, where they live. Their addresses will be on Turnberry Drive. 6811 would be Mr. Bowling's. No, 6818 would be Mr. Bowling's. And then Larry Hickey's would be 6821 or 6811. The property that we have, the problem with it is, obviously he cannot sell it, because if he separated the two lots, as we stated last time, you cannot re-subdivide in the Grove subdivision by their restrictions a lot into a smaller lot. Everything would have to be larger. So to do that, he would have to remove his driveway into his garage, because it obviously encroaches over to the revised Lot 1, to the other lot, which is the original Lot 1. He would also lose his ornamental fence, which if you've been out there, you've seen how nice it is, that surrounds his pool. All that would have to be removed for him to ever sell that lot, which is not an attractive lot by itself, because it's right on the corner of one of the busiest highways in the city, as well as actually one of the busiest streets in the subdivision. Now, having said that, I had a conversation with the developers that are still alive, and they are John Davis and Larry Hickey. George Churchill's deceased. And in their records, when this subdivision, which was developed by them, it was originally approved and passed by the county, and then it was taken into the city. You all know that. When they met with Mayor Paxton and with Rick Murphy, the city engineer, their agreement, and they have record of this, when they took it over, they averaged, and what they came up with as an average per lot with a house built on each lot was going to be $350,000. They have record of this, and they have advised me of that, because I have checked with them. They can furnish that if needed. But on this particular lot, as you can see, if we put two $350,000 lots with houses on them, and if you look on this down here, where the O'Neills is one list, which is 6701 and 6711, the O'Neills is appraised by the PVA at $885,000. So even if a house had been built the way the developers had come up with it with the city and in agreement with the city on $350,000 per lot, they would still be well over that particular sum. Now, if you look on this entire list, if you're going to look at money, which I think if you just go out there and look at the property, it's enough. But if you look at the money, 6701 and 6711 have the highest appraised value of any particular house and lot out there. So it's not that the city is being cheated in any way whatsoever by having put one large structure along with all the other pool house, the pools, fences, garages, driveways, and everything else. They have the highest appraised value by the PVA here in McCracken County. So I don't believe that the city's being cheated in any way whatsoever. They just happen to be needing more room, and they used it. Now, also, just down the road, based on these assessed values, I can point out one thing, and that is the one at 6818, which is owned by Mr. Bowling. He is right behind Mr. O'Neill with $827,900. He is, in the future, going to ask $1.3 million for his house. That tells you what sometimes the McCracken County PVA has and what somebody's asking. Doesn't mean he's going to get it, but that's what he's asking. That's a comparison on what value some of those homes have gone up since they've been built. So having said that, I'm welcome, and I know Jason may have some additional words to say, but I mean, I'm happy to answer any of your questions that you have from last time or from what I've given you today.
How many lots were in 6818 before initially?
What's that? I'm
How many
sorry.
lots were in 6818 initially? Was that just one lot where, that you were referring
That
to?
was 2 lots. I think it was,
Two?
that
That's
Bowling's?
Bowling's. That's actually 2.5
I
lots.
was thinking it was closer, to 2.5, 3.
He had one. He went over it. He bought half of what Larry Hickey owned. And then he went over on the other side as well to put his driveway in. So he actually owns 2.5 lots in that particular spread. And that was introduced to the Planning Commission back in 2015 and approved. The most recent one we have is just one street over on Pillar Chase. That was on lots, I'm not for sure which one, I think 38 and 39. But it was done last August and approved by this commission. Last
What was
September.
the number on that again?
I don't know that. I think it was lots 38 and 39, and they were on Pillar Chase. I don't have the actual address because he hasn't built the house completely yet.
I think it's 1216.
Yeah.
See, for your testimony, you'd said that the notes that Davis and Hickey had were a projected value of $350,000
Per lot.
per lot times 65 lots would be $22,750,000. From what Josh has provided to us, the actual assessed value now, $22,677,000. Now, granted, there's no inflation calculated
Right,
in
that's what I
that.
was going to say.
There's still several lots remaining.
There's still several lots remaining
Of course.
that have yet to be built upon, may or may not be built upon by
Yeah, I mean,
desire. We have no insight into the desires of the ownership. Okay.
right.
I just wanted to confirm that number.
But that is the number that they gave me based on their records that they had with the mayor and the city engineer, Rick Murphy.
Of the vacant lots that you have listed here, how many of these have been purchased and just have not had a house built on them yet? Do you know?
I don't know that.
Okay.
I'm not for sure. I do know the 2 lots on Pillar Chase, that one hasn't been complete, that hasn't been built yet. You won't see that on there. That's the one that has, it's on the right-hand side or east side of it.
1216, is that the one? It's a vacant lot here, and I'm
Okay,
assuming
it'd be
that's
the
what
one
you're
on the
talking about.
right-hand side if you're looking at your picture.
Yeah,
I haven't seen your picture, but I'm
On the left.
guessing that's what it is.
can give it to you.
We don't know when this aerial photo was taken.
Yeah, exactly. I'm
Unfortunately.
really not sure.
They've got some building.
It was quite a while ago because the house in question that we're considering is still under construction apparently.
Correct. 1216 Pillar Chase is the one that was approved by this commission in September last year. And that was 2 lots, and we abolished the center line so he could have a larger house.
And who was, do you remember the,
Marcus Burnett was the builder,
okay.
and his name would be on it, as well as April Jackson was the seller at the
I
time.
remember that, yes.
So without, and I believe one of the people here said it last week, without us knowing, I mean, we've never faced this before, or I haven't, after I developed the property and designed it for them, we've had numerous property lines abolished in this subdivision and never thought anything about it. In this case, Mr. O'Neill, I mean, he needs it abolished because of the encroachment of obviously his fence as well as the driveway, because if he has to remove that, then he's not going to be able to get in his garage or back out. He's going to have to redo several things. Now, I know it was said that they're not against removing the driveway and they're not against having him remove his fence, but I don't know, it just didn't seem like a cordial way to invite people into the city of Paducah to live if you're asking somebody to do that.
I agree with you totally. I have one question, and that is, he owns both lots, does he not?
Correct.
Okay. But he's not planning on selling the lots, is he?
No.
Okay. So I don't see why anyone would ask him to remove his driveway or the fence unless he was going to sell the lots. Is that correct?
Well, it was brought up last time by the planning director that that they would like that lot to remain, and if that lot remains, he can't keep his driveway or his pool fence on that lot because it's encroaching. And he can't move the lot line because subdivision regulations say you can't subdivide any lot into a smaller lot.
Right.
So he would have to remove those if he kept that as a separate lot. Obviously, we're trying to just get this approved where you can have one lot only. And more than likely, I mean, he wants to do other landscaping and probably have another structure built, but he can't have another structure built on a separate lot without approval from the HOAs as well as the city. And if he can't make it into one lot and he keeps it in a separate lot, I mean, that lot would have to be abiding by the subdivision regulations, which require for a minimum of 2,500 square feet.
What are the HOA fees?
I have no idea.
Are they the same for each lot?
I don't have that either.
These lots that were, pardon me?
I believe they are the same.
Okay, the ones that were
Do you know what they
subdivided.
are?
The ones that were put together, so they have one fee as opposed to two. So they're getting,
Correct.
okay.
The same as the people just right down the street. 2 of them have the same way. They've split the lots.
So
but-
really, that's not an issue at this point.
Well, the people I talked to, I mean, and they are Larry Hickey and John Davis, they still own lots out there, and Larry Hickey lives out there. So, I mean, they're members of the HOA. They have pointed out to me, obviously, that anything he builds on that other lot, that if this is made into a lot, it not only has to be approved by the city, but probably the higher standard is the HOAs, because they have high standards on letting anybody build anything out there. And he reminded me that he would have to first go before them just to get permission to build anything else on that particular lot.
But I'm not sure I understand the HOA fees, and I can't find anything in here that tells me, A, what they are, or, how that works, whether it's built on square footage, whether it's just on lot.
I would
lot rate.
suspect, just from being in a membership in Lexington, but not in Paducah, because we own a townhome in Lexington, my wife and I, everybody in our organization is based on per structure, and not on the size, because some of them are bigger and smaller. So the ones we have, it's just based on one fee per year per structure.
Okay.
Whenever I had, had a conversation with the HOA representative, that's how she alluded it to as well, is by lot, not by structure.
Do you know what the HOA fees
I
pay
do not.
for?
Oh, pay for, I'm sorry.
Uh-huh.
There's some stormwater maintenance in there and maintenance of any detention basins, and JSA does have a lift station down in there that may go toward that. And there's also one other thing that I would like to mention, and Mike, please correct me if I'm wrong, but the particular covenant you're talking about, no single lot shall be re-subdivided into smaller lots for the purpose of permitting the construction of more than one residential dwelling unit on said lot. Dan, if a lot line was moved for a different purpose, like around a fence, pool house, would that still be in compliance with the protective covenants?
What you're doing is you're creating a separate lot, but they may be able to adjust those lots. Like if you've got two side-by-side lots and you move a lot line from one before your finished product is still two separate lots, and you move the line for some reason. I don't think that's what they're really talking about. What I think they're talking about is taking one of these lots, like at 6700 Turnberry, and going in, and since you've got frontage on 62, maybe trying to make that into three separate lots that you could not do, assuming that is a platted lot there.
That was my thought as well, is if we had a plat to adjust a property line around a pool house, around a fence, that's well within the covenants out there. Because the purpose isn't to re-subdivide into a smaller lot for two different houses. The purpose is to keep all the amenities on one lot.
What you would do if you did that, though, is you're going to be pushing somebody as far as they can be is right on the highway, which is not very desirable. Because if you move this property line and also make it match the building lines, then obviously that house is going to be just right on the side. I mean, they'll have to, based on the size of the houses that are being put out there right now, they would be right on the highway. I can't imagine that being very desirable.
Is there a minimum size for a structure that's built on these lots in the covenant?
It is.
Okay.
He's got it
That's
right
what I
there.
want to check and make
Yeah,
sure.
2,400 square feet.
Okay.
And that's a one-story. If it's two-story, I believe it goes up to 2,500.
I think we better ask ourselves, what's the likelihood that this lot is ever going to be built on?
It's not.
Otherwise, I mean, if we all agree that it's really, really unlikely that the current homeowner is ever going to sell off that lot and somebody else is going to buy it and build on it, then I don't think we should waste any more time debating whether or not this is a good thing for the city or not, because the ship has sailed. The lot is already purchased by the homeowner. They built a fence across the line, a driveway across the line. It's an $885,000 house. The owner of that lot will never need to sell the lot for the money, I don't think.
It was a shame that the lot line was not abolished before he bought the
Yeah.
house.
Yeah.
That's the bad part.
The only thing I would debate on what you said, Paul, is that the case from the city recommendation is based on the recoupment of investment from the annexation agreement.
Right.
And agreeing with what you're saying, we're not addressing that issue, though.
Well, then if we want to go
Kicking
to
the
the
cans.
recoupment of money from the annexation agreement, the Grove 2, that annexation agreement says that the amount that the city was to pay over the developer was to be based on the actual amount of ad valorem taxes collected for a 7-year or 8-year period. They've long since collected
They've long since, so the.
long since collected every dollar that was put into it. And now we're just talking about the city's return on investment. How much more tax money is going to be generated by this subdivision? And
And the horse is already out of the barn on that.
Yeah, exactly.
think
I don't think
that's
it's
my
likely that a
point.
house is ever gonna be built on that lot, so the city's tax revenue is not gonna go up or down at all based on what our decision is tonight, so we're having a long debate over something that's not gonna really make much difference.
But I think it's a debate that we needed to have, because we're going to deal with this again in the future, in other subdivisions, if not in
Sure.
this subdivision. So I think it's a debate that we needed to have, we needed to discuss.
Call the question.
We have a call for the question. Call the roll, please.
Make sure,
Can we be reminded of what we're voting on? This is
Yes, we're voting, to remind you, and I've read it one more time, but let me remind you one more time. We are voting not to give approval, to deny approval, okay? That's what this says. That's
a
what the
yes
original
means
motion-
denial,
A yes means denial, a no means
no action.
no action.
We ready? Okay. Mr. Wade,
No.
Mr. Bradford,
no.
Mr. Shadle,
No.
Chair Casillas.
No. All right, now we need to have a new motion to approve the plat.
I move that this commission receive and file the application of Edward Francis and Melissa Ann O'Neill for the proposed re-subdivision of property,
Take out the no's. There you are.
okay, located at 6701 and 6711 Turnberry Drive. I further move that the requested waiver of the public hearing and the dedication of streets be given and approval of the submitted plat be approved,
Second.
be given.
Second by Shadle. Is there any more discussion? Any more questions? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bradford,
Aye.
Mr. Shadle,
Aye.
Mr. Wade,
Aye.
Chair Casillas.
Aye. Thank you. Moving on to new business. Mr. Bradford, you have our first item?
I move that this commission receive and file the application of Shepherd's Nest Villas LLC for the proposed re-subdivision of property located at 455 and 463 Westwood Boulevard. I further move that the requested waiver of the public hearing and the dedication of streets be given and approval of the submitted plat be approved.
Second.
Second by Shadle.
This one in Westwood Hills, there's been two prior waivers, and this is in line with those waivers within the view shed. Now, staff is recommending approval on this one based on those two waivers that have been done. They're in one central location. They're not all over the subdivision. There's already two larger lots across the street at 440 and 460 Westwood that were originally platted, and they both have single-family homes on them. Staff is not aware of any immediate need for other waivers in the neighborhood. Westwood Boulevard is a collector street, and it connects Bellevue to North 38th, and that leads to a higher desirability to build a more executive home there. The square footage of the new home, or the proposed new home, is 4,099 square feet, and a drainage easement is established 25 feet into the lot, which restricts the amount of building area. So staff is recommending approval for this one.
Questions? Comments?
Again, two lots, want to build a bigger house, need more room, try to abolish the line in the middle and build a larger house. I think, said what, a little bit over 4,000.
1,099.
And he does have a drainage easement in the back, which kind of restricts that one lot a little bit. He's got to stay away from it for sure. The building line's also 40 feet along the front, so it's got to be built back.
And it appears that fits in with the tenor of the neighborhood.
Yes.
It's another
Awesome.
nice neighborhood in the city.
Do you know where he plans to place the house? Is it going to be closer to the top of to stay away from the drainage easement, I'm
Correct.
assuming?
Yes, because he's also been asked, he told me today that the individual that's building it also wants to build a basement, so he wants to keep it as far away from the drainage easement as possible. So it was a two-story house to start with, going to have a full basement now, so he wants to keep it away from that drainage easement as much as possible.
Questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bradford,
Aye.
Mr. Shadle,
Aye.
Mr. Wade,
Aye.
Chair Casillas.
Aye. Mr. Shadle, you have the 201 and 217 Red Fox Trail item.
Yes. I move that this commission receive and file the application of Logan and Lee Ann Dykus for the proposed rear subdivision of property located at 201 and 217 Red Fox Trail. I further move that the requested waiver of the public hearing and the dedication of streets be given and approval of the submitted plat be approved.
Second.
Second by Wade.
I believe Mr. Goins would like to address this plat to begin with.
Yeah, the property owners have requested that we table this plat until the next meeting. There was a comment or a note that was requested to be added to the plat, and after the owner had a chance to review that, they feel there may be a little bit of concern with that note being on the plat, and they would like to meet with the city engineer on site and discuss things a little further. So the intent would be to come back next month, either with or without that note on the plat, and vote at that time.
Move to table until the next meeting.
Mr. Wade has moved to table.
Second.
Second by Bradford. We are voting to table the item. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Wade,
Aye.
Mr. Bradford,
Aye.
Mr. Shadle,
Aye.
Chair Casillas.
Aye.
Now, this is a table to the next meeting, not generally.
Date certain, correct?
Yeah, date certain.
Which we can table again or continue it at the next meeting
Yeah,
if needed.
You want
You'd
to?
like to think it would be addressed by then?
If it's not, we can.
I mean, we
Speak
can
for the
always
chair.
continue it again if you want it continued, but
That'd be fine.
you don't want it continued for a month, do you, to make absolutely certain? I mean,
Would prefer not.
okay, I didn't think you would. I thought you'd probably rather go ahead and set it up for the next meeting. Okay. All right, Mr. Wade, you have the Olivet Church Road.
I move that this commission adopt a resolution approving the amendment to a development plan for property located at 3235 Olivet Church Road.
Second.
Second by Shadle.
This is for a new sign on the shopping center that's located there underneath the Olivet Town Center sign. It's for Benchmark Family Services. The calculation that's ran on that is equal to 70.3 square feet total, which is 16.73% of the facade. Typically, in the past, the planning commissions like to stay within that 20% that's comparable with other commercial zones, and this one is.
Yeah, we dinner at Rocket Pizza Place.
Other questions,
The
comments?
sign that's up there now is a temporary sign. It's not this sign, right?
It's spanning two buildings. Is that one big? is that one
I have
building?
not seen the one that's up there now.
It looked like a temporary sign, but it looks exactly like this.
Okay.
This one is illuminated, I think. What it looks like. I'm sure.
It's got electric going to it.
Yeah.
It's got to be illuminated, yeah.
Acrylic fiberglass face.
Yeah, LED illuminated. Questions, comments? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Wade,
Aye.
Mr. Bradford,
Aye.
Mr. Shadle,
Aye.
Chair Casillas.
Aye. If there is no more business to come before the commission tonight, we stand adjourned.